So I have here a customer's Deshojo, and the customer is more or less like, can't decide what to do, lost its way. So this obviously is an old Deshojo, the trunk like that. I would guess trees like this are in excess of 65 years old, easily. These trees all imported from Japan. I can see the graft, extremely well grafted tree, good taper, but branches have become too thick and too old. So when trees like this have very thick branches, it is maybe time to redesign the tree. Customers cut one branch off from there, cut this branch. I think the view was to try and make this the front, but this front would not work. The way we decide on the front or back of the tree is not just the trunk line and the shape of the trunk, but a very important criteria or criterion for deciding front is really the nebari, or the base of the tree. So it's not just the disposition of branches, it's nebari as well. So we look at the base there, concentrate on the base. This is obviously not interesting. This is not interesting. This is not interesting. But when you come around here, it's nice and broad. This is interesting. So because of this, I really have no choice but to use this as a potential front. All the other sides I would discount. So I have to work with this. Also, the fact that this slightly leaning is a positive feature, so this is going to be a nice natural leader, luckily leaning the right way. What are the defects on this tree? The defects, because of the age, is that the branches have become too thick. The proportions are wrong or not appropriate for a bonsai. I have always emphasized that in order to make a tree look old and thick, and the trunk looking thick, you need slightly thinner branches, not thick branches. So these thick branches, we may have to sacrifice or think of some way of doing something else with them. The leader is fine, the taper is excellent. The taper is really, really good. There's no problem with the taper. Pity about that branch, we may have to grow new branches. So if you look at this tree, I can see straight away that there are thin branches. This is a thin branch. This is a thin branch. These are thin branches. That's a thin branch. So if I get rid of the thick branches, I still have some thin branches. So all is not lost. Okay, I can see you nodding. All right, you agreed? Okay, so that is my solution. All right. So I have the customer here. I don't need to embarrass the customer. But if customer agrees, I will do that. Okay. Okay, so I usually like to do it gradually. So I won't take all of them out in one go. I'll take that out. I might even take this out gradually. That's too long. As you all know, I work very fast. And as I say, I work fast, and I say it not just to show off, but that is the nature of how I work. Because once you have decided what to do, the rest is easy. This is a thick branch. Okay. I'm still going to keep taking the thick branches off. That's a thick branch.
Obviously, if this is your tree, Peter, you would have airlayed it. Worth
Yes.
pointing out the potential air layers you could have done.
I know, these thin ones are possible to airlayer. Where's that small tree that you were doing? Huh? You can use very small branches to airlayer. Okay, so we've taken those off. That's what we've taken off. And I dare say it's already looking better. Would you not say?
I would.
The proportions of the tree have come back just by removing some of those thicker branches. Now this tree is obviously very healthy, so there's no problem of it regenerating new branches. So I'm not worried in the least. That is obviously a fall. Now this people would say is a fall, but I like it. It's very natural. The way I do my bonsai, I like trees that look natural. I don't like them looking like so stylized that they don't look like natural trees. Obvious blemishes I will take off. So although this and this was taken off, it's still now resembling a bonsai, so I don't have problems with that. Now, looking at that thick branch, I probably don't need it so long. I'm going to cut it back to there, and from here I will get lots of new shoots, so that will fill that space. So you get these thin branches going. This I can take slightly to this side. So be patient, you will get branches from here. I'm glad you kept that little stub. You will get branches growing from there. And you will even get something growing from there. So all is not lost. I'll just tidy some of these ends with my branch cutter. I usually like to make a full concave cut so that it heals flush. If you don't make it concave, you'll get a lump. Okay, that I'll leave because hopefully you'll get a shoot coming from there. Several shoots, even from there you'll get several shoots. That back branch is nice. See, I've got to think ahead because if you're going to get shoots from here, it may spoil the shape of the tree. So I'm going to take it back a little, like so. So even if the new branches grow, it'll fill in that space. Hopefully it'll fill there as well. So, and this is some of our guys were just remarking that a bit of Kanuma has been used, but Kanuma doesn't do any harm. Kanuma is a very nice light soil, and although it's used for azaleas, there's no reason why it can't be used for maples. And this tree will grow very strong because Kanuma is a nice, very light. The roots will penetrate easily, so you'll get good growth from there. Because it's spring, the sap is already rising. I will deal. Look at the sap coming. If you go close, can you see? It's like teardrops. Can you see? We just had a drop now. Can you see the drop there? Can the camera take it? Can you see it forming? I haven't touched it. See, look, look. That's how fast the sap comes out. Maple sap. You can tap the thing and drink it fresh, or you can make wine from it, or spirit. Okay, so I would say that is enough. If I wanted to be picky, I could cut that back to there, but I won't. I want new shoots to come from there. Look at the sap. Look at the sap. Can you see? So a lot of people, when they see sap like this in the spring, they get worried. But there's no need to worry. Even if you didn't seal it, the sap would stop. It would stop in about a day or two. No taste. Okay, so I'm now just going to seal it. So we have removed quite a bit. Look at all that. Look at all that. That's the amount we have removed. And it's got a lovely dome shape. And I bet you anything, within a year, you'll get lots of new branches growing from here, here, here. Let them grow. Don't cut them off straight away. Let them grow, get firm, and maybe next year we will think of removing it.
Is it too early, Peter, to make cuttings from this?
No, the cuttings are best with what we call semi-hard wood. The wood is still not hardened enough. So, see, this is last year's wood. I can talk a bit about cuttings. So the cutting is ideally like matchstick thin, like this with a heel. But because you can try, there's no reason why you can't. So you can use that. But even this is last year's wood. This is last year's wood. If I go and get a branch from another tree, stay there. This, believe it or not, is also a Deishojo, but because it's been growing in this greenhouse, these leaves emerged about 2 months ago, and this shoot, which is about 2 foot long, more than 60 centimeters, was all produced this year. So it's already produced one main new shoot, and then the secondary shoots. And this is what we call semi-hardwood. It is this current year's wood, which has just about to get hard and firm. So the ideal cutting is like that, like that. So that's with a heel. Strip the bottom leaves and insert it in peat or peat and sand with a bit of hormone powder. It will root. If you wanted to make what we call a nodal cutting is something that you cut just below the node. These are called nodes. So if you cut just below the node, the roots will come from there. And if you stick that, because this is also semi-hard wood, this is this year's wood, it will be ideal cutting. So that can be inserted half the depth, that will make a cutting. So that's a little exercise or instruction on cutting. So the sap is continuing to come through, but no worry. As I say, usually the sap stops after a day. It'll continue flowing for a day, but there's no harm. And again, there are all sorts of theories about using sealant. In horticultural college, you will be taught that sealant is detrimental because they say that it can trap the fungal spores. But as I say, it's a very controversial subject. Some people believe in using it, some people don't. But I prefer to use it because nothing lost by using it. So we come back to this as the front. So let's mark the front. So you won't forget. So we still got the lovely conical shape. You haven't spoilt it one bit, and we haven't taken major branches out. I did think of taking this one out, but I don't want to be too dogmatic about it. You know, you can take it to the extent that you want almost what we call a classic tree with one here, one there, and so on. But so what? There are two branches there. It fills that space. If I were to remove that, it would create a very big gap, and that would spoil it. So this is where I've broken the rule. You know, purists would say remove that, but you can see straight away if I remove it, it becomes too empty, and it will spoil the shape of the tree. So this is a natural looking tree. All we need is a few more branches here, and that will come in the coming year, and you've got a very nice Deshojo back to its original condition. There you are. So I have David here, who is a keen bonsai hobbyist or collector, and he's got some beautiful bonsai, and he has some trees which he doesn't know what to do with. So problem trees are often brought to me because they cannot see a solution that might be pleasing enough or does justice to this tree. So this tree, I would say, is about 1.5 meter, could have been even taller. He's already pruned some thick branches off. So there was a thick branch there, and those tops have been pruned off. So there's some pruning been done to this tree. So with a large tree like this, I know that there are large bonsai, but this is verging on very, very large, maybe too large. So because of that, I'm not exactly happy, and I don't know what David has in mind. So can you just say something about the history of this tree?
It's been left to grow, really. It's probably had, it's been repotted, but it's been I've had it probably 10, maybe 15 years.
But was it as tall when you got it?
It was tall, but it wasn't as tall.
Okay, so it has grown more.
It's grown more because actually all it had year on year was just a trim to keep it in a rough shape.
Yeah.
But it was probably 4 feet tall, I think.
Okay.
When I got it.
Yeah. And because bonsai has been imported to the UK since 1962, there are lots of old bonsai knocking around in the country which have become overgrown. Either the grower or the person owning it wanted to grow them into big bonsai, or they didn't know what to do with the tree. So you get situations like this. So as I say, for my liking, this tree is a bit too large. And if you want a big bonsai, yes, we can trim some of the branches and just keep it as a tall tree, and that is the end of story. But I know that David is not exactly pleased with it, and you don't know what to do with it, is it?
No.
So let's look at the various possibilities. Whenever I see a tree, I look at the overall picture to see what the tree would look like if I left it alone. I could bring it back into a tall tree by trimming it into a conical shape, and I could just leave it like that. But this tree has so much potential. It's like human beings. Everyone has potential. Some have more potential than others, and some of them you can see a lot of potential, but the potential has to be brought out. So what are the good points in the tree? I always look for good points. I never try and look for the bad in anything. So the good points on this tree is that it's old, it's got beautiful trunk, and it's got beautiful nebari. Beautiful nebari there. The base is absolutely stunning. And it's like a twin trunk, so originally it must have been imported as a twin trunk tree. And I dare say the tree was no more than like 70, 80 centimeter high. So the nebari is good, the trunk is good, but the proportions of the tree being so tall doesn't do justice to that trunk and the nebari. So, as I said, the obvious option is to trim it back into conical shape and leave it as a big tree. Now, looking at the tree from different angles, because whenever you want to decide the front or the back of the tree, my first impressions are, what is the base of the tree like? I look for that straight away, and then the trunk. In fact, this tree is interesting from virtually every side. You look at the tree from this side, it's nice and broad, so that's a possible nebari. You look at the tree from this side, this is also possible as a nebari. Let's remove some of these because they may be distracting you. So this is quite nice. I think these guy wires, I don't think we're going to use it for this design. So this nebari is very nice. So I'm still deciding whether the front of the tree, as it is the right choice or not. Because the tree has been potted in a rectangular pot, obviously there was one side which was the preferred side, and I think this may have been the preferred side, isn't it? Was this the preferred side with the tree leaning this way?
Yeah.
Okay, so this was the preferred front. Again, very nice. Nebari, very nice. So the nebari is nice from three sides. This side, also nice from here, and also nice from here. This is also a possibility. Very nice and broad. Okay, but the tree as it is, so tall, you don't appreciate the beauty of the trunk and the beauty of the base, or the root base, nebari. So we could easily just trim it, as I said, back to a conical shape, make this the leader, make the tree that tall, and still get a reasonable looking bonsai. But there are more than one possibilities for this tree. I've always said that to every problem there is always more than one solution, sometimes two solutions, three solutions, endless solutions. And this is exactly that example or case in point where there are so many, many possibilities. I said to you earlier on that the beauty of this tree is really here, and it extends up to here. Beyond that, it is a distraction. So my first impression was, what if we did something radical and brought the tree back to there? That means just concentrate on this part up to here and have a short bonsai like this. If you have a short bonsai this high, short is all relative, isn't it? I mean, it will be half the height of this existing tree, or even less, about 40% of the existing height. By having it there, all your concentration and the eye is going to go there and here to the trunk. And you will be looking at that and not be distracted by the top. So this is going to be a superb solution. I'm also very confident that I will be able to produce new branches in next to no time, because I know maples. I specialize in maples. If you can home in on this tree, look at that little shoot. That has just started sprouting. You look at the tree, all over you will see new shoots. There's another new shoot coming from here. We will go, look at that. These will all become thick branches, about at least matchstick in 2 months. And by the end of the summer, it could be even, I don't know, maybe thick as a biro. So producing branches is not a problem. So straight away, I can see that the solution is to make it a short tree, either using this as the potential front. And if you want it to be even more radical, because I've seen bonsai in one of my customers' place, he's got a mountain maple with a base about 18 inches broad and tapering to a point in just about 18 inches. So you can get a good taper. So if you want it to be radical, you could even make a tree with this side as the front and have a tapering tree with a broad base and this as the leader and tapering that way. So there are so many possibilities. So either we make a short tree with this as the new top, or disregard the back and use this, using this as the front, nice broad base, and this as the new leader. So we could airlay this. We could airlay this to get a nice short dumpy tree. We could even airlay that, but we do it in stages. So certainly airlay this, airlay this. I don't know what to do with the back. I think if you use a single trunk, then we have to probably discard that, airlayer here and get another tree from there. So these are the different possibilities. So it's going to be an exercise in airlayering with a view to producing a bonsai from this trunk. So that is the radical solution we've come up with. And it's now up to David to decide what he wants us to do.
I will just go for it.
Go for it.
Yeah,
There you are.
that is a great solution.
Okay, so
It's very exciting.
we're going to go for it. And so we're going to give you exercise in airlayering, so we can airlay this, because this is going to eventually go, because this is going to be the new leader. You're going to grow new branches. So it's like rebuilding a house, you know, it's like destroying the house, not destroying it, rebuilding from the base down. We're keeping the footprint, and building a new house. So we're going to airlay this, airlay this, airlay that. 3 airlayerings, and this is an exercise in airlayering. So we're going to start airlayering. So there are 3 possible points. We're going to airlay this one, and airlay the back one. So let's start with the simple one. So this has got quite an interesting curve there, so that could make a nice bonsai. You could even argue that you could get a twin trunk tree from that and airlay from there. But let's do it from here, because we would cut it from there anyway. So the cut we make, usually, the width of the cut is about the width, the diameter of the tree. So if this is slightly over, I would say it's like 3/4 inch, this is the amount of bark I'm going to remove from there. So you can go right round. Now, we always say that we get down to the cambium. As long as you remove the bark, I think you will be getting into the cambium. Don't be too enthusiastic and remove so much that you get to the bare wood, because that can kill the tree. There are many ways of doing the bark removal. You can even put what we call a tourniquet, a piece of wire, and twist it. What we're trying to do is to stop the sap flowing from there to there. And because you stop the sap flowing from there to there, this part is struggling to live. It'll send out roots to suck up water. So if you put a ball of moss, it will send roots into the moss to produce new roots to sustain the tree. So that is the theory of airlayering. There are so many different ways. As I said, there's also another way. I will just show you what we call a bridge. So that means you don't remove all the bark, but you leave a little bridge. And the bridge serves to keep sending nutrients to the other side. Because if you remove it completely, the shock can be so drastic or so severe that it can kill the top. So some people do the bridge method as a safety precaution, safety net. But if you leave a bridge which is too big, all the sap will go through the bridge and it won't send roots. So it's a fine balance, knowing how much bridge to leave or not to use a bridge at all. I've found from experience that with maples, you don't need to leave a bridge. But I'm just showing you this in case anyone wants to practice the bridge method. So I'm going to remove that bridge. I'm not going to use the bridge for this. And remember, you can't airlayer any and everything. I know one of my YouTube fans from America said that they can airlayer pines. I don't know which pine, but from my experience, the only pine that is possible to airlayer is one called the Zuisho pine. It's a very small needle, 5-needle Goyomatsu, and that is produced exclusively by airlayering. But apart from that, I don't know of any pine that airlayers. I will stand to be corrected if anyone has had experience in airlayering, say, Scots pine or even Japanese black pine. So you've got to know what airlayers. Again, from experience, we know that hornbeam airlayers well, beech airlayers, maples do, junipers do, very easy. Willows, of course. Willows, you only need to stick a branch in water and it will root. So you don't even need to airlay. So that is the width of the cut you make. And now let's prepare the surface. I like to use hormone rooting powder. This is commercial hormone rooting powder. And many people are confused as to where to put the hormone rooting powder. A lot of people put it where I've cut it. No harm in putting it, but the actual place which is most effective is above the cut, for the simple reason that the roots are going to come from this part. It's not going to come from there because the bark has been removed. It won't produce any roots. We don't want the roots from there. We want the roots from here to sustain the tree. So the hormone rooting powder is put this part rather than that side. So that is enough. I've wet it a little bit so it's easy to apply. There's also hormone rooting liquid because the active ingredient is a substance called IBA, which is indolyl butyric acid. And the powder is talcum powder to transmit the thing. So once we prepare this, the next thing is to prepare the plastic wrapper. So I'm going through all this airlayering from scratch, as it were. I've done before, but I'll show you again. So I like to use clear plastic. I know some people advocate the use of black plastic. The only reason they say that you should use black plastic is that it says it excludes the light. I don't know why it should exclude the light, because if you wrap the moss ball around the trunk or the branch, it's excluding the light from the trunk anyway. So what's the point? Besides, if I use clear plastic, when the roots come through, I can see the roots. I've used this for the last 30 or more years, 30, 40 years, so it works. So I use clear plastic. You can also use bubble plastic. And bubble plastic is good because it retains heat, so it generates heat, and it sends roots even more easily. But I find that the clear plastic is good enough. You notice that I use this Akadama bags. I don't waste anything. I like to recycle, and I find that the thickness of those bags is just the right thickness. It's not too thin and not too thick. So I prefer to use that as the thing for wrapping. So this is about the right size for doing an airlayering. So I will put a ball of moss. Let me show you. This, by the way, is moss that we have collected from around the pond and from our lawns. So this is sphagnum moss. And the genuine sphagnum moss that we import, and as you know, we import our moss from New Zealand. And this is the New Zealand moss. I know it's been graded and it's been treated. There's chemical to kill the bugs, but it's live, so there's very little difference. So it's the same thing. So I'll use some of this and some of this because I like to experiment to see which works better. But I'm sure this will do as well because I use this every year on my own trees. So for an airlayering that size, this is the size of moss ball you want, this size, like a small bird's nest. Okay, so that's what we're going to wrap around that trunk. So I prefer to put it on the plastic, and I will get some wire to tie the ends. I don't bother with string or anything. Wire is very convenient because when it comes to removing it, you just unwire it rather than have to cut away string. So that is where I put the moss, so that there's a lot of moss this side as well, because this is where the roots are going to come. I keep some on that side so that it keeps it moist. I will now, I'm going to add more moss, but let me tie that end to stop the moss from falling out. Everyone will have their own favorite way, preferred way of doing things. As I say, you can tie string or whatever, but why I find this the most convenient thing to use. Okay, so I've now formed a little like cup, and now I'm going to stuff a little more moss. You usually find that 1 or 2 liters, how much is that? You know, it's like a large grapefruit. So that's the sort of size you want for the moss ball. And if you do it correct, we are now in the middle of April. I usually start my airlayerings around about this time because there's so much growth, there's so much activity. The xylem and all the nutrients are going up and down the tree, transmitting all the nutrients up the tree. So, no, that's not big enough. I'd just like to just be a bit more generous. And you notice that this moss is wet when I put it in. And because I'm using plastic, the plastic is going to hold the moisture in. When I was a boy growing up in India, I used to see the gardeners there use Hessian jute sacks. You know, in the old days they used to use the Hessian sacks for transporting rice and all sorts of other goods. So that was used, and they used to use the Hessian sacks or cloth to make airlayering. And that was okay because when they did the airlayerings, it was in the middle of the monsoon or the rainy season. And in the rainy season, there's so much moisture that you don't have any trouble keeping the root ball wet. So that's okay. So that's all we need to do. Now, if we are lucky, in 6 weeks you may get root, but I would say give it 3 to 6 months and you should get root. I usually try to make it quite tight so that there's no leakage of air, so it keeps it damp. And when the roots come through, you will see the roots growing. There you are. So that's how we do airlayering. So I thought I'd show you the final outcome of what we did this morning. I worked on 3 trees for this particular customer, and this one I didn't talk about, but this was a very interesting tree. We're going to reshape it more of a conical shape, but we transformed this completely. I wish I had videoed it, but not to worry. This is one that we did. This is the dishojo that we completely changed the tree. In fact, the front is the other way around. Have a look. So this is going to be the front, and we've got to build some branches here so that the tree will be more like this. So if you re-look at the video, you will see what we did, and the sap is continuing to flow, but as I said, it will stop. And then this big boy, as you can see, this tree was about, I would say, originally more than 2 feet high. It was chopped at the top, and the customer got a bit scared to proceed, so this is how it ended up. But he's quite happy with what I proposed for him. So this is going to be the future tree, about that high, with that powerful looking trunk. That twin trunk we don't need because this is going to be the front of the tree. So we've airlaid this portion to make another tree, like a multi-trunk, another tree from here, and another tree from there. So we'll end up with 4 bonsai, 3 new ones, and that one. So how good is that? 1 not so interesting tree, and we are going to get 4 interesting bonsai. So this is how we look at that. And as you can see, we haven't pruned that much. That was the red that came out from the deshojo. And that's all. The rest is an air layering exercise. So I hope you enjoyed this video.